Welcome back to Fresh Outlook. Anthony Weiner says he's not going anywhere, even though he got caught again. His wife was standing by his side this week, but will voters? Let's take a look at the story that's capturing headlines in New York and beyond.
This morning, Anthony Weiner.
Many chuckled just from hearing his name, but Anthony Weiner may have the last laugh if he wins New York City's Democratic primary for mayor.
The very people that put everything they had into this city are getting priced right out of it.
He vows to help the middle class in his new campaign ad.
And no one will work harder to make it better.
His wife may have forgiven him for his indiscretions, but many New Yorkers can't, especially female voters. According to a Quinnipiac poll, 52% of them didn't want him entering the race. But these people feel differently.
What do you think about Anthony Weiner joining the mayoral race?
I think he's a great politician. I think he's going to do very well.
Sometimes second chances are worth it.
If he gets elected, I mean, I wouldn't mind. I think it's over, that controversy.
Do we want a congressman or a mayor who runs around under an alias acting like a juvenile delinquent? And the answer is no.
Many demand he resign from the race, but Mike Bako from D.S. Simon Productions says that probably won't happen.
He's not going to pay attention to what the popular belief is. If he paid attention to what the popular belief was, he probably wouldn't have entered the mayoral race in the first place.
His wife, Huma Abedin, remains by his side and for the first time speaks publicly about the scandal.
Anthony's made some horrible mistakes, but I do very strongly believe that that is between us and our marriage.
And to talk more about the New York political arena, we are joined by political psychologist Dr. Bart Rossi, Dee Dee Benkie, and Bruno Tedeschi. He is a political consultant. We thank you for sharing your thoughts on this. And of course, we have talked about this before, everybody. And here we are talking about Anthony Weiner again. Okay, now you and I actually disagreed a little bit about this, Dee Dee. So I'm going to have you. I'm going to have you take this one. I was one of those women in the 52% that said, I'm not so sure about this, but you still kind of stand behind him.
Well, it's a little harder now. I mean, that was when the picture was sent out, and now you've got all this extra layer of problems. But I will tell you, I still don't care about what people do in their personal life. I really want to know if they're going to do a good job or not. And knowing what Christine Quinn wants to do, I would still vote for him over Christine Quinn. Because I think she'll be a weak mayor.
When you say what Christine Quinn will do, what worries you the most?
Well, because she's anti-police, because she wants an inspector general, and I want a law and order mayor. I want a tough mayor. And even though Anthony Weiner has these issues, I think he'd be a tough mayor. I think he'd still do a good job. But it's everyone's making such a joke about it. I don't know how he gets through this, but if he does, it'll be the biggest comeback ever.
Well, I'm going to go to Dr. Rossi first. And the fact that he doesn't seem to care what people think, what does that say about his personality?
I think he's very self-absorbed. He's a narcissist. And I always say there's different sides to all of our personalities. We all have sides we need to work on. Nobody's perfect for sure. He has sides that are so over the top, pathological. He is compulsive, obsessive compulsive individual who cannot contain himself. And I appreciate Dee Dee's sensitivities. However, I do not see him making it. I think he's dead in the water. And I think people see him as someone who doesn't have the integrity.
Well, we appreciate everybody's insights onto this. Bruno Tedeschi, tell me what your thoughts are. This is the first time you're joining us on this topic. So what do you think about Mr. Weiner?
Well, the first thing is, if we look at the polls, the latest poll they just did on him shows that he is falling behind. So when he first ran, he was up in the polls against Christine Quinn. And the latest poll shows that he's now down significantly in the polls. So I think right there, I think New Yorkers are probably saying they've had enough of this guy. He's just, his indiscretions are just too much. They keep coming out. Who else, what else is there now? I mean, is there more to it? And you know, in a campaign, the last thing you want are these surprises to keep popping up like this.
Well, Bruno, you're a consultant, so I'm going to let you go consult Anthony Weiner. What are you going to tell him?
Well, I tell him to drop out. Actually, I think there's only so much damage control you can do in a race. I think he's gone beyond that point, and it's time for him to cut bait.
All right. Well, Dee Dee, how do you feel about cutting bait?
He may make it to the runoff. You never know. I mean, you can't count the guy out yet. I mean, you really can, just like you can with Spitzer. I mean, all this crazy stuff's going on. So if he makes it just enough, if he's able to say, okay, I know I really screwed up and I'm going to get help, and then, you know, but this is what I would do policy-wise, even though you may not appreciate this is what I'll do as mayor, into contrast to Christine Quinn, who went down in the polls whenever Weiner got in, but now I agree that it's a lot to deal with But if he makes a runoff, it's between those two, you never know. But there's also Bill Thompson. This is a third guy who would be a really good mayor as well. So we'll see what happens.
Well, I'm just going to throw out an entirely different question, and there we see Mr. Weiner on the cover of New York Magazine.
And Spitzer.
But, well, yeah. Oh, and Spitzer. Pardon me. Yes. Let's talk about Mr. Spitzer and Mr. Weiner. What is it saying about New York? I mean, what if you're a New Yorker like me? I mean, you're kind of like going, "Wow, would this go anywhere else?"
I didn't think the polls ever really reflected the truth about Weiner. I thought he would always have problems. I think I said that here a number of weeks ago. I really thought that we were only in the second or third inning when we were talking about him at the beginning. And now I think voters are looking at him and they know that he doesn't have enough truthfulness. That his integrity and his reliability is not there. He doesn't have a winning personality to be mayor, and I think the voters are seeing that.
But you say winning, you say stronger, Dee Dee.
Yeah, I don't care if he's a jerk, and I don't care if he does this stuff. I just want to make sure the trash gets removed. I want to make sure the taxes are low, and I make sure that the snow gets removed, and he makes sure the trains run on time. That's what I want, and I don't think Christine Quinn will do it. I think she's weak. So if we've got an alternative like Bill Thompson or someone else or Joe Lhota, fabulous. But if it's between those two, forget it. I'd rather have Weiner for mayor.
Bruno, what did you think about his apology? Do you think it was sincere enough? I know you're still saying that he should bow out, but do you think that apology needed to be more sincere?
Well, I think it was interesting that he brought his wife into the picture. You know, again, looking at the polls, the only thing that we can really look at, it didn't seem to have much of an impact having his wife make this stand up for him, basically. So I just don't see that the apology was sincere enough, and I don't think having his wife at his side helped him in any way whatsoever.
Not a good idea.
Do you think this is going to pit Christine Quinn and Thompson against each other now? So are they going to sort of eliminate Weiner themselves and just go after each other?
I think it'll be between them because I don't think again, I say personality at the end of the day trumps everything, but I don't mean likability. I mean the traits and characteristics that really relate to voters. I think Quinn and Thompson, they may have something that could relate. He does not. Weiner does not have it. He doesn't have enough going for him.
Bruno, you're the consultant, so I'm going to ask you to be put on your consultant hat again. If you were Christine Quinn and Thompson, would you completely eliminate and completely ignore Anthony Weiner?
Well, I think I would wait because I sincerely don't think he will be in the race after this week, much to the disappointment, I think, of every tabloid reporter and editor in New York City. I just don't see how he survives the next week. I really don't. So I would just...
Dee Dee, final thoughts on this before we...
You never know in New York. I wouldn't count the guy out, and we'll just see, but it's made it quite interesting.
And again, I just want to ask one more question. I mean, do you think this is bad for New York? I mean, do you think it's bad for New York, Dee Dee?
I think it's bad to have a weak mayor for New York. I think all this...
No, just with the Elliot Spitzer...
Yeah, yes, I do. It's unfortunate. It really is.
All right, let's talk about Ray Kelly right now. Possible head of Homeland Security. Your thoughts on that? Bruno?
Well, you know, Ray Kelly has been the police commissioner in New York City for a number of years. Crime has gone down under his tenure. But at the same time, he's a very polarizing figure. And he's got, there's several issues which make it very difficult to get his nomination through the Senate. Primarily, there's the issue of with the Muslims. He ran a program within the New York City Department that basically spied on the Muslim community. So I think that's going to be a major issue that comes up in his Senate confirmations.
And of course, the stop and frisk as well.
And the stop and frisk is the other one. So those are two big issues that I think are going to hinder him getting his nomination through the Senate if Obama should nominate him.
We're going to talk about predictions in a minute, but Dr. Rossi, if you can talk about Ray Kelly's personality.
I think he presents himself well. I think he looks like somebody who's solid, effective. I think he looks like a pretty good leader. And I think anyone for this job is going to have some baggage. I agree that he does have some baggage, some problems. But I think his personality will overshadow that, and his effectiveness will overshadow those issues.
No doubt that crime has been down in, when we see other major cities like Chicago where it's skyrocketing and the murder rate is going up. So he certainly has done a good job in terms of the numbers. Dee Dee, what are your thoughts?
I think he'd be perfect. I think if he could be our Homeland Security Secretary, it'd be so good for our country because he's more of a policy guy. He's like a law and order guy versus political. So I think his personality is really good. I agree with Dr. Rossi. And the fact that he has done such a good job keeping New York safe. And he's really all about the job, not about the politics. And I don't think he has the baggage. I think he'd be perfect.
He seems to make good sense to me.
Yes,
You know?
definitely. And likable. So I don't know if he would ever take it, but if Barack Obama could get him to agree to that, it'd be a really good move for the president.
Obviously, he can highlight his positives, but as the consultant, Bruno, we keep coming back to you for the consulting. What does he do about this stop and frisk and about some of the other things that have that are in his past?
Well, just this past week, he himself penned an op-ed in the Wall Street Journal, basically defending that stop and frisk policy, and I think he made a pretty decent case for the use of stop and frisk in New York City. Whether other people buy that in Congress, that's another story. But
we're talking about the border. Stop and frisk would be good and more on the border. So it's a different situation there.
And I want to, before we end this segment, I want to also talk about, of course, Mayor Bloomberg. And we've got 11 years and not much time left with him. Give me a quick rating about what you think of Mayor Bloomberg.
I think he's going to go down as a really good mayor. I think that when you look at his experience, you don't see scandal. You don't see a lot of hot issues that have happened where it's taking the city down. He's tried to have a high standard, a high bar. And I think he speaks his mind, he says what he feels, and even if you disagree with him, I think you can respect him. So I think he's going to go down as a very high quality mayor.
And he certainly had to walk into some pretty tough, pretty big shoes after Rudy Giuliani left after 9/11. Bruno, thoughts on Mayor Bloomberg?
Well, I think if his main legacy is going to be the smoking ban in restaurants, I mean, that really was a major thing. I mean, now we kind of take it for granted that you can't smoke in a restaurant. And he also tried to push through the soft drink ban, which was, somewhat of a failure. But those are two issues I think that people are really going to remember him for because they affect everybody. On the other issue I think is really big for him is that he actually effectively ran New York City's government. An unwieldy beast. And he managed to harness it and to run it effectively. And I think he's going to set the bar for many mayors to come, both in New York and other major cities in the United States.
Dee Dee? Got a question mark on that face.
Well, yeah, look, I think Mayor Bloomberg has done a fine job, and he needs to get off this crazy stuff at the end. Like, at the end, he's doing too much, the soda bans, and, people are like, what the heck is this all about? So, so his legacy is good. He needs to get off this goofy stuff. The soda ban is ridiculous.
I think Coca-Cola and Pepsi might agree with you on that one, Dee Dee. All right, we're going to take a quick break, everybody. And speaking of upcoming elections, New Jersey's Governor Chris Christie is making some headlines of his own. Is he running for president in 2016, and what are his chances? We'll take a look at the latest numbers when we return.